Good evening. Welcome back. This is a Hand Up Recovery Home Show where we talk about recovery, stopping the violence in the west side of Chicago and throughout the city of Chicago, and where we talk about how we help people change their lives and prevent many of the things and work on the things that help cause the violence. We know it's not one item in particular most of the time. It's a myriad of negative things, from poverty to broken homes, to a lack of mental health services, to substance abuse itself and alcoholism that's rampant, as well as the drug trade that permeates the west side of Chicago and many other communities where poverty is persistent. But we have probably the greatest advocate in the state for having the trains that. State Rep Shawn Ford is our guest tonight, and he's going to talk about all the things he's done for almost 16, 17 years. 18. You don't even look 18, right. Doc. You don't even look 18. But anyway, 18 years. And we were there in the beginning, me and Eric also, helping to get him across that historic moment in his life and our life. And he was already talking about how to help people recover from alcoholism, substance abuse, how to deal with mental health issues, and most of all, how to get better education. So those three things I know from day one he was working on, and he continues to work on, and that's why he was invited to join us. And I want to thank Eric Stith, my co-host, for securing this night with State Rep Shawn Ford. So we'll let the State Rep have a few words, and then we'll let Eric chime in with his first question.
Well, Wilbert and Eric, it's great to be in the middle of two great men that's been out here advocating for the people in the state of Illinois and setting the model. You know, I know you'll never forgive me for being on your block having a press conference with the West Side Heroin Opioid Task Force, and I don't think they invited your organization. But you showed up. You showed
the
up.
Neighbors called me,
and that's a sign of being having your tentacles and having support in the community. They having something that's dealing with substance use disorder on the block, and you were not there. The community knew who should be there, and they came and got you.
Right, and we want to thank Carolyn Garrity, WTTW and WBBM Radio, who did come back and interview us.
Yes.
We aired them and put us on the air. And she actually got a snippet that's not in history, but at the last minute, a snippet of her original discussion with me and some of the other neighbors in the radio program that went out later that day and the next morning. So she was very kind to us.
That's good.
And she came back to show her support for
see
the
how
community.
See how we brought it to the neighborhood right there, where, you know.
Right. And you have been there before, and you've been elsewhere. Like, I commend you for going up over there around Hamlin.
Oh, yes.
Unfortunately, in Ferdinand,
yes.
and helping sit on that block and stop days of drug activity, which one of my church members told me, hey, State Rep Shawn Ford came down here and he shut him down.
Yeah, you know,
he keeps coming back
yes.
because he wants this area cleaned up, and he is challenging the police to do a better job. So my church member, she came and told me about that, and we used to have a house in that area too for a while. Unfortunately, funding kind of dried up on us. Over there on the 500 block of Ridgeway.
Yes, I know, right by the church.
449, 447, yeah, right over there. So I like the work you've done. And Eric, there's a few things you might want to say as well as ask your first question.
Well, Rep Ford, since he first proposed that ban the box to help ex-offenders get jobs. I mean, healthcare, having a job, you can't really survive without those kinds of things. We need to make sure that folks have housing. Housing is healthcare.
Housing is healthcare. I think we're finally trying to bring that on as a reality, that housing is healthcare.
So I wanted to ask Rep Ford regarding gun violence, regarding ex-offenders, regarding substance abuse treatment programs. I mean, in the coming months, how are you going to proceed with this new group that you're working downstate?
Well, hopefully, there's actually, it's good that we're talking about this because there should be an awareness that, the Opioid Settlement Fund
Okay. Wow.
is a lot of money that's a windfall to the state, and organizations like this should be in line to receive funding to help with the constant need for treatment.
Right.
And helping people in need of substance use disorder treatment and harm reduction tools so that they can, if they use safely. Right. I mean, because the old days that Ronald Reagan and his wife Nancy Reagan talked about, just say no, we know that didn't work. It just, it sort of drove people deeper into despair because they didn't allow for individuals to be treated for the underlying causes for some, mental health problems or homelessness or trauma. And the Reagans would just say no. So, and that was very difficult. So between the Opioid Settlement Fund and the 1115 waiver, that's a lot of money that should be out here for homeless prevention and the opioid crisis and trauma care. The 1115 waiver is a federal program, but with the new administration coming in, we shall see if the 1115 waiver will continue because that's all federal money.
Okay.
But the Opioid Settlement Fund is money that came from a lawsuit, so that money it doesn't have the same restrictions as federal dollars and state dollars.
Right. Okay. That's good to know. Thank you for being willing to share that on this show so that the community at large can know that it's available as well as that we can know it's available. My question is, what is your greatest accomplishments over the last 18 years when it comes to helping deter people from substance abuse and alcoholism and help them get treatment? And what is also probably the saddest moment, which is probably within the last few years when this fentanyl hit, but I'll let you kind of describe some of your highs and lows as you fought to try to help improve the quality of living in our district and throughout the state of Illinois.
Well, I would think that one of the proud, accomplishments is to pull together the West Side Heroin Opioid Task Force. It's a task force that has gone out and hit the streets and gone on corners and met people where they are and talked to family members about harm reduction. That's really, really hitting the grounds, and it's like taking church outside of church. And you're going where people need the help. And, actually, the West Side Heroin Task Force under my help, we actually was the one that really advocated for the state to have a contract for free Narcan. Okay. We brought that to the department and made sure that the state was able to get a contract to have free Narcan. So if you have a non-for-profit agency, you could get free Narcan from the state. I mean, there's no limit. It's just you could constantly get free Narcan, the overdose prevention drug for someone that may be dying from a drug overdose. So that was a big accomplishment. It had nothing to do with a bill that was passed because this was grassroots. And so, but definitely there's been a lot of bills that I've passed over the years. As you all know, the Ban the Box, as Eric spoke of, you guys helped with the referendum. People wanted that bill. They wanted it to pass so that they could apply for a job without being discriminated against based on their past.
Ready to change healthcare.
That's right. Yeah. And then the sealing of felony records. I mean, Connie Howard, she started the sealing of misdemeanors.
Right.
And, you both know this person that I'm about to say, Melissa Williams.
Oh, yeah, Melissa from
There,
North Line.
yes, from North Line. They arrest her, so she She passed of ovarian cancer, so women, make sure you be checked out. I had prostate cancer, but so I sent out an email to the community of bill ideas, and she actually wrote back and said we need to seal felony convictions. And today, across the state of Illinois, I think we're a model because people from all parts of the state, from rural to urban, white, black, brown, get their felony records sealed, and they have a new lease on life.
So you lead me into my job creation, how you can talk about some of the programs that help ex-offenders get jobs.
Well, that's the sealing of records actually help people with criminal records get jobs, because now they don't have to check on the box for
Right,
federal
the box.
Man, the box.
and they could apply for jobs and actually qualify and not be disqualified. So many times you may not check the box because you don't have to, but then you go in and then they do the background check and it's there. Now, when it's sealed, it's not there anymore. It's actually sealed. The only people that can see it are law enforcement and certain banks. But other than that, I mean, it's a new lease on life. So that's a major bill that we actually was able to pass in Illinois. We also did HIV and AIDS routine testing. That's a big one. Remember we worked on that? Yeah. So we have done a lot of work in the HIV and AIDS community where, you remember back in the day, in order to take an HIV test, you had to answer very intrusive questions like if you have had sex with a male, if you are an IV drug user, all the risk factors that may have attributed to contracting AIDS. Well, we fought and we were able to pass a bill and get it signed into law to make it a part of the routine health care treatment. So if you go in, a part of your screenings will be HIV tests unless you opt out. You don't have to, and so that has helped reduce HIV and AIDS across the state of Illinois, even though we know that there's still a rise today in the black community. So we're still suffering from an increase in the black community. But across the state, we know that the spread of HIV is down, because if you're tested and treated, you're probably not going to spread it because you become undetectable like Magic Johnson.
Right. I know quite a few people like that.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Beverly Donnelly, who at the time was with Prevention Partnership over 20 years, Dan Cantrell helped me get my first grant with the federal government, small, $2,500. And we did a big HIV seminar at a church, and she saw it because she was doing the West Side Ministers Coalition she was building together at the time, and came and helped me out. And I reunited her with someone she helped 10 years earlier not die from HIV AIDS.
Wow.
And then I met him in a recovery room, and he ended up speaking at that forum. And she was so ecstatic that I had helped reunite her with a client she had 10 years earlier and lost contact with. And also he was alive, and he lived like 25 years.
Yeah, you will live
longer. And we have another young lady spoke at that event at Great Open Door Church that she's still alive. And she even had hepatitis C along with her HIV. So, but she is still alive, thank God. And God has blessed me to know some wonderful people who have learned to live with illnesses and not die from them.
That's why
harm
reduction is very important, because hepatitis is spread through IV drug use.
Yeah. You've been an advocate for fathers' rights over the years.
Yes.
And then, so I'm going to ask you two questions.
Yeah.
Talk about fathers' rights, and then talk about your newest initiative to help daycares in Illinois.
Yeah. I mean, father rights, I think that co-parenting is critical. I mean, the responsible way to be is whether you're going to be with your ex-wife or your ex-girlfriend or your ex-boyfriend and there's a child involved, to make sure that the child's best interest is always front and center so that you could co-parent. You know, if you're going to have a child, you need to get a job, whether it's working at a McDonald's or working at anywhere. You have to get a job so you could co-parent with resources. Child support should be a last result. I mean, if you are a man, you should not have to pay child support to a woman if you're co-parenting right. So if you're handling your end and she's handling her end, that's what co-parenting is. But if you are neglecting and the mother or the father has to pull the total weight, pay the rent for the child all along, like gas, child care, and everything, there's going to be child support. So I hope that people will understand the power of co-parenting. It'll change the streets and it'll change the trajectory of a child's life. And you asked about the other one. So you know there's a big need for child care, and we've helped a lot of child care agencies and increased the funding for per child per day in Illinois. And
people with mental health and substance use issues definitely need good child care.
They definitely, yes, and sometimes those child care facilities are like schools that it's pretty much the only stable day
Latchkey kids
in their life. The food, you get the food, and they get a good nap. Naps are very important as children grow up, and to be able to sleep and take a nap in a comfort setting is part of
early
growth.
learning. I mean,
Yes, yeah,
Stable learning.
yeah.
And I think one of the greatest things is daycare, but unfortunately for parents, what I'll call them substance abuse, I think sometime later on in life, instead of encouraging their kids to get an education, they start sending them to school just for the daycare service.
Yeah, just to get them out the house.
After daycare and child care services, as they get older, they should be seeking an education. But if you get adults with limited mindset and they're trapped in addiction, sometimes they just want their kids out the house.
Out the house,
But
yes.
that is not the goal of the school system.
No.
It's to educate their kids. It's a good, stable place to have them away from home. And then that's the one thing that I know years ago, sometimes principals didn't want to suspend kids because where are you sending them back to?
Right.
Sometimes it's safe, so they start timeout, air rooms, all kind of different names for it. But how do we give them an in-school suspension rather than potentially send them home to a more harmful environment that and could be detrimental in other ways? So I commend you for doing the things you can to make early childhood more prevalent and to increase the options for the parents that need it, whether they substance abuse or, quote, are normal parents. But even that children can be taxing for any adult.
Yeah, kids are a challenge, so don't have them if you don't want to be up for the challenge, because it's a lifelong challenge. You'll never sleep the same again.
Yeah.
My daughter's 20, and I still, you just don't, Tia's 20.
Right. So I guess my next question is, what are some of the more important bills you've been able to pass and funding that you all have been able to provide? Because you provided a lot with Harper.
Yeah.
What are the plans now that the Harper money surely is going to dry up?
It's
One
gone.
is its time period is over. As of what, December 24, you have to have it allocated at least, or it goes back to the government central treasury?
We have a great team, and we're not going to send any money back. In fact, the money is it's already allocated for. Okay. But I'm the chair of higher ed appropriations, and if you want to go to a public university, we have MAP. Everyone that's eligible will always get MAP award. So if you go to a public university, also they have what you call AIM High. We fund that. So you can go to a state school, and it shouldn't be as expensive as going to a private school. But can I give you guys an announcement about a bill that Congressman Davis and I are pushing?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we're pushing a bill to allow for people with felonies to run for local offices.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
There's one going to be president soon.
So he's got 34 felonies, and he could be president, right?
Yeah. So he's good for the gander.
You
They
know-
used to say good for the goose.
So you can run for president, but you can't run for trustee, alderman, party. Do you think the Republicans have a hard time accepting and voting for this?
Not anymore.
I hope not.
No,
I
one that
hope
said
not.
needed expunged anymore.
Right. Yeah. So that right there is House Bill 5409.
Okay.
And hopefully we could pass that because there are a
I
lot
hope
of
so.
people that have backgrounds that would love to be engaged in the democratic process.
Yeah, and then someone would make some good candidates.
I think so.
And good officials.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, too, just like when it comes to a recovery environment, a lot of times they use counselors that have experience in recovery. And sometimes people find it hard to listen to people who don't really know what they've been
They don't
through.
understand.
So people struggling in the community that's been ex-offenders, some of them will have even more compassion for how to best help them. And be all hands on deck, and you'll really have that extra advantage of somebody who's been through the things. Because we talk about the jail, but living through it is a whole different picture from what we talk about and see on TV.
Yeah, and if you are going to put yourself out there to run, it's up to you. I mean, we know it's a dirty process, so if you feel like you don't mind people attacking you for your previous transgressions, then so be it. But remember, there's a lot of people that have been convicted and jailed for crimes they didn't commit.
True.
Central Park 5. Now he's a councilman.
But a guy who had a show for years on CAN TV, Reverend Dr. Oscar Walden, he was the Innocent Project in the black community, black church, long before any of them universities picked up on it. Check his history. Dr. Oscar Walden was a great man, and he used to have a regular show on CAN TV for years, and he passed a couple years ago. But even in our AME church, which he was a minister, he used to remind me, Cook, it's a shame. They give me no credit, and now you see some of these very dignitaries, elders and everything running to do press conferences with Northwestern now.
Wow.
And he spent over $1 million helping fight for rights for ex-offenders and to get innocent people out of his
Well,
settlement
why don't
money.
we work together to do a resolution for his family to honor him in the state?
All right.
The West Side is just privileged and honored to have such an educator.
Yes.
To have a representative that is committed to
Human rights.
Human
I
rights.
see you as maybe even being a congressman or senator.
I'll take that.
Yeah. We're waiting.
One day.
Congressman, you hear us? You can send us to LaShawn whenever you decide. But anyway, also, LaShawn, I want to commend you on
Congressman
the
Davis is one
Mandela
of your mentors.
He is.
Mandela Street. Yes.
Mandela Street, yes.
Mandela Street. Tell us a little
You
bit
know,
about
if
that.
you drive down Cicero, you see Mandela Road. It's because of the work that we've done. We know Mandela is a revolutionary figure, and on Cicero and Roosevelt, we got to change both streets.
Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali meets Mandela.
Oh, wow.
So that's right there on the west side of Chicago. And I
For
want,
creative leadership.
you know, the goal was to change all of Cicero to Mandela, but of
Right.
course they didn't want Mandela coming down in the south sides of Chicago. You know,
Oh, yeah.
Madigan's area down there,
Right.
and up north in the other side of the persuasion. So they wouldn't let me get it. So it's restricted to the district.
Oh, didn't they tell you they couldn't change all the addresses?
You're right, because of the
Postal
airport.
service and all of that.
Yeah, so that was good.
It's going to be a logistic nightmare for the federal government.
We're going to have to get Rep. Ford back
Yeah,
on
I'm
the show
happy.
in a month or two.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be going back to veto session, and I think that it'll be great to have a report
Right,
on
okay.
what's happening.
Okay, great.
And I hope that you all will do what you can to advocate for money for your program through
Yeah,
the opioid settlement fund.
Okay.
Good, great information, right?
Thank you.
Definitely. And for all of you all out there in the airways that have organizations, know people that might be qualified, or people that might want to, or organizations want to partner with us, have them give us a call, 773-213-0802, or hit us at on an email at, wecook3289@yahoo.com, and we'll be glad to work with you as individuals, you as organizations, and we'll have an advocate with the state, the great LaShawn Ford, before he becomes congressman.
Here I come.
All right, so
Or
great show.
senator, or mayor.
Thank you all.
We got a man.
Chicago? Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah, I tell you, we'll see what happens.